I want to ask probably the most depressing question I've ever asked on Bible Boys.
Oh, no.
Over under on God's Not Dead 5, including Chris Pratt.
Oh, almost 100%.
Yeah.
I would be so happy if God's Not Dead 5 had Chris Pratt. Are you kidding me?
Hey guys, I'm here to announce that I'm doing this amazing movie. You've known me as Mario. You've known me as Garfield. Now get ready for Pastor Dave's wacky younger brother.
Welcome to Bible Boys, a podcast where two ex-evangelical siblings and an ex-Catholic non-sibling watch Christian media and either praise or condemn it. I'm Aaron.
I'm Josh.
I am We the People.
This week, we return to the franchise that started it all with God's Not Dead, We the People. Before we get a preview of Virginia's new school curriculum, please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, like and comment on our video, and follow us on Twitter at The Bible Boys.
And I told you not to make me cry.
I'm sorry. Welcome to the Conservative Governors Club, boys.
Well, you know, I actually have to say, we really spoiled God's Not Dead 5 with this.
How so?
Well, because the whole plot of God's Not Dead 5 is me taking you to court in a lawsuit for pain and suffering damages. And it's based off of the McDonald's coffee case where actually I'm in the right, but it seems like one of those, tort reform lawsuits.
Yeah. Green versus this motherfucker. No, you'd be right. You'd be in the right. I think this definitely, you should be able to bill this to somebody, a therapist, your insurance agent, someone, a priest.
I don't know how they did it, boys. They made a movie. I think they listened to our podcast. This is the only explanation. Because this literally, this fits so well, not into the universe they've built, but the universe we've built for them.
I was so delighted that they made a movie specifically for us. Like, they literally starting it with Ronald Reagan. I was like, this is it. This is our core competency. This is the reason we started this podcast. I'm so fucking happy.
Yeah, they really were like... They added me, basically. Like, I feel like I was tagged in this, and I don't like it.
But then they were like, hey, remember all of the stuff that made the Bible Boys feel uncomfortable about even ironically viewing it? We doubled down. Doubled down.
It's so much worse.
And we also included 3 to 4 AMVs about the past movies.
So I have, like, a hot take, though. They've almost looped around to camp. I laughed through so much of this film because they were just so not aware of how bad it is in a way that, like, seems creative and, like, difficult. And I don't know. Maybe it's because I watched this very not sober, but I couldn't stop laughing. It was the most joy I've had all week.
I wish we could get, like, a live reaction of, like, Michael cackling through this movie and me staring dead-faced, slack-jawed, angry eyes at my phone as this terrible quality movie plays on YouTube.
We should contextualize. It is November 8th of 2021. The Virginia governor's race has just been won by Youngkin something or other.
Mm-hmm. Glenn Youngkin.
Glenn Youngkin, who is a Republican. And probably endorses a lot of the ideology in this movie. So our poor co-host Josh, who is a teacher now, 100% teaches kids at school, is not thrilled about the stuff that's gonna be going down in their state.
That's okay though, because if this film is any indication, like half of your kids are just gonna end up being homeschooled anyway, so you'll have a small classroom.
Exactly.
I just have to say, like, we make a lot of jokes here. We make a lot of goofs and gaffes. It bums me out to no end that the idea, and I'll get into this further, the idea that teaching kids to be themselves and to look at the world through their own lens is seen as brainwashing. That is the end of that statement for now. I'll yell about it more later.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into it. Like we alluded to, of course, they open with our favorite president, Mr. Ronald Reagan. And this is a pretty famous speech, I believe. This is him talking about how freedom only comes once in a generation and you have to, like, defend it because it doesn't, like, if you don't defend it, it'll never come back.
Except for the next generation.
Except for, yeah.
kind of defeats it in the speech.
Freedom is like the Avatar. It does come back every generation, but it does come back as an infant that's kind of powerless. So, you know.
It's when you want to kill it, Zuko.
Yeah. We get this great Reagan speech over our favorite pastor, Pastor David Hill. He's like he's washing his hands and he's in the bathroom and he's like, "Oh Lord, speak through me. It's going to be your voice in that congressional hearing and not mine." And
we know, well, maybe I know. So I know Dave is going through it, and I'll share with my co-host and audiences why. Because just like every gay twink from the age of 20 to 45, when Pastor Dave is going through it, he bleaches his hair within an inch of its life.
His poor fucking center part is really struggling.
It's holding on by like one fiber.
How would you guys describe the face he was making, like washing his hands, being nervous? Because the only face I could describe was, uh-oh, the last stall's taken. I have 5 minutes. 5 minutes before disaster strikes.
That's actually 100% correct. So this is like all in the future, right? We roll back time, and we meet I believe they're called the McKinnons, the McKinnon family. We have Mike and his wife, who is named Rebecca, thank you. They don't introduce her name until halfway through the movie, but
it's not important. She's Christian lady.
For the characters that they are, for like the fact that this whole thing in theory centers around their homeschool, Mike and Rebecca are like very tertiary, which I think is very funny.
There's like a very deep and like gross through line with these movies of the actor who plays Pastor Dave going, I kind of want more screen time though.
You mean Pastor Dave, who is playing Pastor Dave?
Oh my god,
I mean David A.R. White, I believe is the full name of the actor, but like, yeah, I think he also like, I think he like co-founded PureFlix and everything, so like this is very much a vanity project for him at this point.
Because in the first one he was the B plot main character. Mm-hmm. And then in the second one, he was like, I'll take the B and C plot if you don't mind. Yeah. And then the third one, he was like, it's all about me, baby.
Yes, 100%. And now it's just all about him again, which is very stupid.
Yeah, Pastor Dave is kind of the Annabelle of this franchise.
He's always there. We can't get rid of him. His presence looms over us like a dark shadow.
And he's murdered multiple people.
With his tiny baby doll hands.
I want to point out, I'm talking about the Pastor Dave in this universe, in the God's Not Dead universe, not the actual Pastor Dave. Please don't sue me. I'm talking about your character you play. Obviously.
We're creating a headcanon for your character. You're welcome for giving you free press.
What's the small penis rule? Like it's technically parody because we said this one has a small penis. So if you want to disprove it, you have to go to court and say, actually, I have a large penis. It's a real court thing. I'm not making it up.
I don't think that you should be an attorney, Josh.
No.
No offense.
I'm just saying.
Offense. No.
So we get the McKinnons. They run a homeschool. They're part of the St. Jude's Co-op, which longtime God's Not Dead fans will know is named in honor of Reverend Jude, who was killed in the third God's Not Dead movie.
Was fridged. Let's call it what it is. He was fridged.
And important to note, he was from Africa.
Yes, Africa.
He was from Africa.
We only learned that he's from Nigeria in this movie, and it's very stupid, but we'll get there. We see, Mike, he's a busy dad. He's going to go, he's kissing his wife. He's telling his kids to be good. We see him, like, talking to his son. I think his son's name is Brandon, because of course it is. And we see him trying to, he's like, oh, Dad, I've been saving up money for a car. I'm 17 years old. This is going to be my first car. And he's like, do you think I should buy this one? And he pauses, and like I paused and I went back and I looked at the car. He is trying to buy a 2015 Dodge Challenger used for $35,000.
Oh my God.
I don't know that I'll ever own a car that is half of that much money.
Well, Aaron, you have to remember they're saving so much money with like making lunches at home and
never eating avocado toast. Never even had avocado.
They stopped going to Starbucks. They stopped buying 12 gallons of milk.
They live in Arkansas. They don't even have, like, fucking East Coast inflation.
Oh, this is a family that 100% buys 12 gallons of milk.
Oh.
This is that lady that Fox News was very concerned about.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my Christ. So he, that kid becomes more important to the plot than the parents, but don't worry about that. We also meet Taylor and Jackson. Taylor is a member of the co-op. She's we think that she's just a waitress. Keep that in mind, but she drops Jackson, her son, who is implied to have some sort of learning disability or to be on the autism spectrum. We never get a confirmation, but it's heavily implied that that is the case with Jackson. But she drops him off. He's like, I don't know, he's not even 10. I would say probably like 8 or 9. He's a young kid, but drops him off at the co-op. They talk about how he's been struggling, and then she goes off to work her waitress job. Then after the Reagan thing, this is my second favorite thing. I was like, oh, this is going to be a good fucking movie, because we get the return of Martin and Aisha.
Yes!
Martin has been in the other movies, but Aisha was from God's Not Dead 1.
Yeah.
This is a big pick, and she's not just a throwaway character. She's a throwaway character with at least 3 to 4 sentences.
I mean, what happens to Aisha in this movie is actually worse than what happens to her in God's Not Dead 1. And in God's Not Dead 1, she is beaten and kicked out of her Muslim household for converting to Christianity. And I still stand by that statement.
I'm bringing back an old Bible Boys bit. I believe that she's the Job of this universe. Where Satan and God have a bet.
How much can we torture her? Have we been introduced to the lady from the state about the education yet?
Not yet. We're about to. This is the next. It's a very good character, but I just want to set up Aisha and Martin real quick. Martin has been on mission to China. He can't return because of the persecution. They actually brought up the Muslim genocide against the Uyghurs, which was very impressive to me. That they actually brought it up at all. I know
had very different reads on that, Aaron.
Yeah.
I mean, they hate Muslims.
Yeah. So I read that as a weaponized explanation for see, look how bad Christians have it, and using a comparison of a religion that many Christians are hostile towards. It felt very look how bad this state's government is towards Christians by looking at this genocide against an ethnic group. And it just felt a little 2 + 2 doesn't equal 7. It doesn't matter how you spin it.
I mean, obviously they are framing this in a way that's the state is coming for your religion, and that's why they use all these other characters to show oppression against Christians, quote unquote. And we'll talk about that further.
I wish we could insert the audio of Ted Cruz on stage yelling, "Why am I being persecuted?"
Don't worry, I'll get that in post.
My exact feeling when that little scene came out, I was like, oh, hey, they're mentioning a thing that's important that people know about, and also mentioning that this guy's parents all hate him because he's a Christian. Mm-hmm. Okay, exactly. And the movie has an opinion, which is bad Chinese people, bad.
Yes, not surprising.
Not a good opinion.
No.
Yeah, it sucks. And him and Aisha both share the thought that Christianity can be so lonely, which is really stupid. So we come back to the co-op, and this is where we get introduced to Mrs. Dowd with social services, which is extremely funny.
My queen! I, too, identify as self-partnered.
Okay, yeah. Do you want to explain how that scene goes?
So this little girl is asking the social worker, are you Miss or Mrs.? And she says, hey, it's just Ms. There's nothing incomplete about this. It's a title. And yes, I agree the English language is dumb, that we have all these differentiations, but she's right. If that's how she introduces herself, you just move on. It's just polite. Maybe I'm showing off some southernness here, but it's just polite to just go with what someone introduces themselves as. Mm-hmm. And then the mom is like, oh, but what she means is, do you have a husband? Do you have someone who speaks for you and tells you how to vote and, like, you know, make sure that everything's accounted for? And she responds with, I identify as self-partnered. And I am using that from now on. I am never saying I'm single. I am just going to identify as self-partnered.
It's just the best understanding of this movie's ideology. It's just like, okay, you know, this kid was just innocently asking whether or not you were married, like kids always do. And then, you know, they do two things, right? They do the identify as, because of course liberals are always, you know, messing with their identities. And then they say self-partnered because they don't want to say, you know, married or single. Liberals are always being like, oh, my partner. And they combine them in the clunkiest, stupidest way. And it's so funny. It actually rules.
It's actually one of those things that I actually paused for a minute because I was laughing so hard and thought, is there an atheist in the writer's room?
Oh, if there's this, I do believe in every bad movie, there's one genius writer who's doing everything they can to, like, maybe steer the ship in a different direction. I would love it. Hey, if you're the God's Not Dead, We the People, amazing writer, hit Michael up on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll blur your voice out or whatever, but, you know, come on the podcast for sure.
Yeah.
So the thing that starts the plot a-rolling is that they're teaching the story of Noah because, you know, Pastor Dave is there to minister to the kids. And, you know, she's like, okay, so the teachable moment is that if you don't obey God, you will die, and the animals will also die. What do the animals do? And it's like, they're trying to frame it as like, oh, these people really don't understand our beliefs and culture. But it's like, I mean, no, that is very much the story of Noah.
That's the story, yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think this would have been a great excuse to have movie day so they could watch the film Noah and actually learn a good lesson about, like, taking care of the environment.
Oh,
this is why I couldn't homeschool.
And this is when the armadillo dogs went extinct.
Yeah.
I miss those armadillo dogs.
I do too, but listen, those guys wanted to eat meat, and that's on us.
Yeah.
This part of the movie drove me insane. I am going to say that many times throughout this. I'm a staunch believer in that homeschooling needs to be regulated to fucking hell. That, like, we really have to be careful with who we allow to teach people. I have heard multiple horror stories of people being like, yeah, I couldn't read until, like, middle school, and that's when I started going to public school because my mom was homeschooling me and just didn't do anything. And that happens a lot. And a lot of it's used under the disguise of, like, oh, you know, I want to keep the liberals from teaching my kids. Hey, listen, you can indoctrinate your children a ton and, like, teach them all of the bad stuff. It happened to me. And they're gonna figure it out anyway. They're gonna get there. So maybe just allow them to know how to read. And instead of focusing on, like, we're gonna make sure our kids know to be a Christian, maybe make sure they can do math and read. I don't know. Just crazy idea.
Unless they're gay, then they don't need to know math.
Then just kick them out of the house, which is what you're going to do anyway. This movie made me so angry.
Yeah. I want to be clear. I think we are going to come down pretty hard on homeschooling because that's a big subject of this film. I do want to shout out our faithful listener, Max, who, you know, was homeschooled. Max, this is not an indictment of your education. But I think you also feel the same way we do, which is that homeschooling probably needs to be regulated. But shout out, my man. Hold it down.
I'm going to say something that sounds wild and fake, but it is true, and my brother can corroborate. My best friend was homeschooled, so...
Yeah, listen, like, I think there's we, you know, they have people in our lives who were homeschooled and we love them, but I think we're also going to say some stuff about homeschooling that might upset you. So just keep that going. And, you know, if you are a homeschooled person and that's going to upset you, maybe turn off this one, you know, sorry.
And I just want to point out, if you believe people should be homeschooled due to, like, you know, they like environmental reasons or personal reasons or, like, sociological reasons, that's totally fine. I just cannot stand the religious excuse for it. That drives me insane.
We'll talk about it at the end of the, you know, the reasons why people homeschool. But yeah, it'll be fun. we get introduced to Taylor again who comes and picks up Jackson, and it's revealed that his dad was a pilot in the Air Force, and he died. And we'll get to how he died in a little bit, but it's interesting. So we see then like some images on a TV. We see this guy talking about, breaking the gridlock. We got this education bill coming down the pipeline where we have no interest in bipartisanship. And then he says the line, kids need a progress and we're going to give it to them.
I did love that line.
Honestly, fuck bipartisanship. Who needs it?
If this was real life, they would be like, listen, we're pushing through this education reform. We're also putting $8 trillion into 5 meters of a border wall, just because we wanted to get 3 Republican votes, and they ended up not voting for it. But at least Joe Manchin voted for it, so then we got it.
Thanks, Joe. Basically what happens is that the co-op gets served legal papers, and they're going to have to deal with the repercussions of that. Aisha and Martin go and talk to Pastor Dave, and they're like, hey, what we're going to do about this? I think Martin says the line, I always thought the law gave parents the freedom to homeschool as they see fit. A normal thing that you would say in regular conversation.
Another normal thing you say in normal conversation is, American history has become a hobby of mine. The Constitution is a great document.
Yes.
I do love that this film keeps, accidentally, walking into the wall of being pro-choice.
It's really good.
These parents deserve the right to make decisions.
Yeah, it's great. The kid of the McKinnons, Brandon, he's car shopping, and he meets a girl in his neighborhood, immediately falls in love with her, and he's like, hey, can I buy your car? And then takes some pictures of her on the car, and that'll come back later.
Can I just point out, we've had many bad, C-plots in these movies. This is my least favorite C-plot of any God's Not Dead movie.
It's really bad.
I'm including the one where a woman listens to Billy Graham's son and therefore gets kicked out of her home. This is much worse than that.
Somehow, yeah.
It's less interesting. I don't know if it's worse, but it's definitely way more boring.
Yes. It's way more boring.
So Dave is talking with the other members in the co-op, and, he's like, maybe you should just let your kids go to school because you'll have to pay so many fines, and we get a flashback to God's Not Dead 3. We see the time that he punched a kid and how he went to jail, and he's like, listen, I've had some run-ins with the law. I don't know if you want to go down this path. And then they're like, well, they're teaching kids that we don't need God. And then I don't know if this is the part, but at some point they're like, look what they gave my child at public school. And it's like an advertisement for birth control. And they're like, my kid's in the 2nd grade. They wanted to get our 2nd graders pregnant. It's just like, all right.
Okay. Patently, that is false. By giving them birth control, they want them to not get pregnant. It's actually my favorite thing. I love parents hand-wringing over contraception, because it's like, oh my god, what if my children grow up with a healthy relationship to safe sex? That's the scariest thing I've ever seen, and we just got out of spooky season.
I'm pretty sure in my high school at the time they weren't allowed to tell us that we should wear condoms. They just told us things that would happen if we didn't. I want to live in a school where at 2nd grade I got a little pamphlet about safe sex.
Yeah, I would love a school where they just hand out Discovery packets to all the queer kids. Hey, trust us.
But it's still a little problematic because they just guess which kids need it.
Yeah, it's great.
In my Catholic high school, they told us that HPV cannot protect you, or condoms will not protect you from getting HPV, which is just a patent lie. They said that the disease, the virus, is too small and it phases through the condom's wall.
Kitty Pryde?
Yeah, just
yes,
phasing right through.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the Catholics are so good at science.
Yeah. Anyway, I work in STD prevention.
You're trying to undo single-handedly.
Honestly, it's not even because I care about STDs. It's just because I have so much catching up to do. So they get taken to court, and who is the judge here but one Janine Pirro.
Favorite drunk TV judge.
America's second favorite drunk TV judge.
Who's number
That's right,
one?
Judy.
First.
Judge
Judy's
Judy.
not drunk. She is a pinnacle of daytime TV. She doesn't get drunk on the job. Janine
No, she's
does.
too busy yelling at her interns.
Yeah.
And there's a thing they bring up a thing that I actually wanted to ask you, Josh. So they talk about how like all their kids are super lonely because they can't go to after school programs at a public school because they're homeschooled. And unfortunately, I was like, I get why that wouldn't be allowed, but it makes sense because they would still have to pay taxes to the local school district. And then Pastor Dave makes the exact same point, and I'm just like, oh fuck.
So that point is very dumb because, like, Aaron, why aren't you allowed to go to prom? Why can't you go to your local prom?
Me
Yes.
right
you pay
now
for it. Go to prom.
It's
You pay
because
for it.
it's because I'm an adult.
Yeah. It's not for you. It's for the people that go there.
I guess that's true.
We pay for, like, we make these investments even if we aren't using them. They are paying for, they could say the same thing with, like, hey, I don't want to pay for roads in Iowa. I'm not going to use them. I don't want to pay for, like, the military. I don't support it. That, literally, that's the government. You pay for things you don't want.
You don't get to line item society.
Exactly.
The thing is that school district taxes are a very specific thing that I've unfortunately learned about over the course of several years, and like I can see the legal argument they're trying to make. I don't know if it's like, I think it's a stupid argument, to be clear, but like I see why some people might argue that. And I just think it's very weird that like you're willing to take your kids 100% out of school, except for the cool soccer program. We definitely want little Brandon hanging out with the heathens then.
So I just made a mental connection. These parents are basically like the UK with Brexit. We want all of the benefits, none of the responsibilities. Thank you.
And I want to point out, there are good Brexit deals for homeschooled kids. There are programs where, like, you go to school one day a week, or you can still are partnered to take, like, tests and go to after-school programs. These people are like, we want nothing to do with the school system, nothing to do with it. But their soccer coach does seem like he might get to States this year. So I want to attach to that.
Exactly.
I thought it was I understand where they're coming from, where they're like, we're paying for this school, why don't we get to use it? But that's fucking taxes, bud.
It's great. We love that. We're going to get a lot more misinterpretation of the law here in a bit. We do get a bit of Aisha being sad about her family kicking her out, and she misses her dad. And like basically all Aisha's job is in this entire movie is to look out the window and see like parents and kids holding hands and being like, man, I miss my family, which is very bad.
Fun fact, and slight spoiler, every time she looks out the window, something sad happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yup. So basically, they decide that they're going to fight this bill, or not this bill, this court order. The judge orders them to like either put their kids in public school or disband the co-op within like 10 days or whatever. But they get a call from Daryl Smith, who's this Texan congressman who wants them to testify before Congress about this educational bill that we heard about.
Yeah, and Senator Ted Cruz, I'm sorry, the senator from Texas that asked them to stand up for Christian values, invites them to Washington, D.C., to which they go, Pastor Dave says, we're going to Washington, and they're like, D.C.? And it felt like a fucking Disney Channel, like, Zach and Cody go to D.C.
Yeah. So... yeah, they go to Washington, D.C., and we'll talk about this, them getting ready to go to D.C. real quick. But also, for sure, Brandon buys this car from this girl, but then he doesn't ask her out yet, but he'll eventually ask her out at some point. It's very boring and it added an unnecessary 5 minutes to this movie. And then we get Aisha, everybody's getting ready to say goodbye. Aisha leaves a very sad voicemail for her father, who we actually see in this movie. They got the same actors, which is incredible. But like we see him, looking at the phone, like as this message plays, and he looks very sad because he misses his daughter. And then we meet Taylor again. Taylor is like coming, they're about to all drive off to DC. The Taylor rolls up and she's crying, and she's like, just like, oh, this is worth it, right? We got to go. She's very clearly upset. and she reveals that like she asked off time for this trip and they fired her for asking off time for this trip. And like, this would be a completely different movie if they're like, anyway, let's talk about the unfair labor conditions that exist in, right to work states.
I was very ready for Pastor Dave to be like, well, you shouldn't have been lazy. I don't know what you want. You should have gotten a better job.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You'll get a new job.
God. It's wild. But at this point, we learn that her husband died. And like we knew her husband died, but she specifically says that her husband died on an Air Force training mission and calls it an equipment malfunction. And she says, "I've read enough government documents to read between the lines," and like, it is a completely discarded plot that she thinks that the government had her husband killed.
Yeah.
It's so buck wild is later in this movie, she goes, we're not like flat earthers. And I'm like, you think the government assassinated your husband?
Well, here's the thing. Her husband did have a Q-level security clearance. So
he was Q.
God damn it. Got another one.
Can we talk about the montage in DC?
I was going to skip it, but yeah, if you have something interesting to say, go ahead.
I have so many issues with it. I want to point out the prayer of Valley Forge. It is the famous painting of famous deist George Washington praying at Valley Forge. And at one point, Dave is kind of looking at it like, yeah, our founding fathers believed in God. That painting makes me so angry because George Washington, again, as I said, deist, he believed that God made the world and that's it. He did not see any benefit in any like practices in religion, did not really believe in praying. And multiple times they'll try to paint the founding fathers as like God worshipping men. That was true for some of them, but like just for an example, if you look at Thomas Jefferson's Bible, he went through it with a knife and cut out every point where God did something, every miracle. That doesn't really fit in this worldview.
Not really Christian.
No, and then the things that they demonstrate were very, because they picked monuments on purpose.
Yeah.
They show a lot of Abraham Lincoln, the best Republican president there ever was. They also sneak in real quick a little Martin Luther King Jr., someone who fought for actual issues in the country, to try to get
a socialist also.
Yeah. They just tried to sneak that one in, like, oh no, we would have liked him if he was around now.
Sure.
And then every war monument, just every single hoorah, they just had to get it in. And I found that very interesting because they're like, these are the men that fought for our freedom. They fought for like democracy. And I don't know. It's interesting that they put that one and then like one mention of like the Civil War where you could actually argue that people fought to keep the nation alive for with democracy. But yeah, I just need to go on that little rant.
I mean, there's a reason they choose those war monuments. It's because this movie has a fascist ideology.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah.
This is a bad film, but thank you for summarizing the very bad montage. It's gross. Eventually, they meet this Congressman Smith from Texas, and I think Dave meets him at like this pizza joint. Those like dive bar pizza joints that all the congressmen hang out at. I mean, you both live closer to DC than I do. Maybe that's true, but I don't think that anybody who sits in Congress just like meets constituents personally at local pizza joints.
If it was real, it would have been an oyster joint and it would have been $5,000 a ticket.
You might be surprised. There was a pizza place that I used to frequent that former Speaker of the House Boehner used to go to all the time. Like, all the time. Like, a stupid amount of time. I never saw him there, but, like, he was there literally all the time. Like, yeah, there are, like, swanky fundraisers and stuff like that, but, like, I'm just gonna ruin everyone's day. The people in Congress are people. Some of them like junk food. Some of them only eat healthy. They like expensive dinners and they like cheap dinners. It's just, we are dealing with humans. Would he meet a constituent one-on-one? No, but would he meet someone who is going to give him a lot of press in a place like this? Yes. He wants to be there so that way, like, the DC journalists aren't necessarily there, but there's a flaw in that of like that could just be anyone. But yeah, you might be surprised. Like there there are places that are much like this, like hole in the wall, very local, small places that politicians just frequent.
This is also it's just this guy's rib place from House of Cards. It's just the place that he always goes to. I saw 2 seasons of House of Cards, and it's all I needed. That this is just his little place.
Yeah.
So yeah, this congressman meets Pastor Dave there, and they have this really great talk about why homeschooling is so important. And they bring up, I think some stuff that I think Josh probably really strongly agrees with, like the fact that homeschooling is a weed to these folks. The Common Core agenda is just trying to make everything relative because, it's trying to make things that it's trying to make it so there's no such thing as truth, because then there's no such thing as, moral absolutes. And it's another way to kill God. Nietzsche didn't get him in the first round, so we're trying to swing back around with moral relativism. And then he says the line, "Ask your average millennial about our founding fathers." The congressman says, they're telling them that they were all just rich, oppressive slave owners. And Pastor Dave was like, weren't they, sir? And here's what we should point out. This Congressman Smith, is played by a black actor, which is important to note because these franchises use race in such a pernicious way when they're trying to, demonize the way that, people are treated in schools, as we saw in God's Not Dead 2. The principal there was a black person. But, here, this black congressman is like, no, the founding fathers were just kids, They were just trying to make their way in this great world. And then
he called them kids. He called them kids. Oh, it drove me insane. I want to point out, first of our out of the first 12 people that were president of this country, 8 owned people. One of the main reasons the United States broke away from being like a colony is because rich slave-owning politicians in Virginia bought up a ton of land past the Appalachian Mountains, and then when the British were like, actually, you can't go over there, those rich people were like, what the fuck, now I can't make any of my money back. Now we better revolt. This idea that the founding fathers had this concept of pure freedom for everyone drives me nuts. Yes, we should understand that they wrote some ideas that led to some good things, but we should also understand these people kinda sucked.
It's great. It's good. Love to see it.
Most of them weren't Christian either. They weren't Christian the way that they would define, as God's Not Dead would define as Christian.
Did you watch the movie? Because it seems like they were freedom-loving Christians.
You got me there, Aaron. You got me there.
So, real quick, Brandon gets a date with that girl that he bought a car from. So this is the night before the court, or not the court, but the congressional hearing. Yes. And we get, a montage of Taylor looking at pictures of her husband. The McKinnons are all praying. And then we learn that this girl that Brandon got this prom date with, her mom is the judge, played by Janine Perreault, who, and that's why this is important, because now he's dating, the daughter of the person who's like trying to put his family in jail, which is very funny. And then we get Aisha. She's, thinking about her friends who are all in DC. She's praying for them, and she's like looking out her car window as she's driving home, and sees a family and is very sad. And then they take another page out of the book of God's Not Dead 1, and they hit her with a car.
They don't just hit her.
They radisoned Aisha. Aisha got radisoned. I can't believe this is happening. Ugh.
And there wasn't even Pastor Dave there to say your lungs are filling with blood.
No.
Maybe that's why she goes to the hospital and doesn't die immediately.
Yeah. We'll talk about, because there's a couple. It's the worst. It's the worst, because if you have listened to any of these God's Not Dead podcasts, you know where this is going, and it's just fucking gross. But
I also want to point out that maybe instead of focusing on our freedoms being taken away and the school system, maybe pass a couple vehicle laws, because this seems to be an issue.
Yeah, seriously.
In this in-universe, and why did no one think to call the newsboys?
Yeah,
No,
seriously.
and faith healers. Like, come on.
God damn it.
Well, they hung up their cape after the incident.
Yeah. So we meet. It's the next day. We meet the Democrats. They're like wearing blue clothes, basically. And you know, it's insinuated that like originally the person who was going to hear the meeting was going to be like a guy who was on their side, the co-op side. But it is insinuated that the Democrats killed him with a heart attack somehow, like Death Note style. It's like, oh, such a shame.
She has a book and just
Yeah.
his name.
That's what she tore up in that famous GIF.
Yeah.
If Nancy Pelosi had a Death Note, I think she would be exactly as effective as she is now.
I actually would like these movies if it was in the the Death Note universe.
God, it kind of is. It kind of is. We can't get into it though. There is a very funny bit where like somebody comes up to the congressman. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry that Abercrombie got a heart attack. Thoughts and prayers, sir." And like, I couldn't tell if that was a dig or like a genuine, sincere compliment.
No, that was
was
the
a dig.
atheist writer again.
Yeah. That was the atheist writer going for you boys, you Bible boys who I know will love this shit.
Yeah,
You nasty boys.
Flirting with me, you atheist writer. You know I'm self-partnered, so...
Why do you think Janine got such a big role in this one?
Yeah, but she was remarkably sober. I would have liked it more if there was a little bit more wine slurring.
Hey, we got God's Not Dead 5.
Yeah, we hope. So we cut to the courtroom and like the bad, socialists are testifying about what they want with this education bill. So
With their facts and figures. Nerds.
yeah,
Give 'em
and
a
then
swirly.
it's great. And then the good guys come in, the Christians, and I think basically immediately Pastor Dave starts taking over, and is like, believers have abandoned the mountain of politics for too long. And I was like, is that so?
Is it
David?
Really? Let's
I have
talk
some-
about this one.
I have some literature from about the 1860s that I would love for him to take a look at.
Yeah.
I just would like to know, was he in a coma his entire life and is just now waking up and just thinks, like, oh my god, Christians have never been participatory in politics because, just in my lifetime, we've had a wealth of this. And, Dave, I am younger than you by a significant margin.
Boys, can we take a quick second, and I want your guys' opinions on this one, of the Christian idea that at this point, fewer people, that freedoms are being attacked all the time. That, like, because there are, I think, two ideas in the mainstream that, like, as time progresses, more people get closer to equality. And then the other side of that, which is our freedoms are being stripped away. And this one definitely falls in that second category. Like, they think that America was at its freest in 1776.
I mean, yeah, these people are absolutely like, yeah, we should use the 1776 project as like our template for homeschooling. But like, the thing is that like this movie came out at the perfect time, and I don't think they anticipated it, which is like this movie is coming out when we were having conversations about quote unquote critical race theory in school, and that's propelling conservatives to or eventually they're gonna probably have a big wave in 2022, probably bolstered by that lie. And the writers of this movie they would have absolutely leaned into it harder if they had thought about that, but they didn't. But they still somehow managed to get kind of the vague foreshadowing in just enough. This is mostly about the issue of homeschooling, not about the issue of public schools. So like, I think that they are swinging for like, yeah, we really have to defend our rights, but like they don't know what they're talking about, because if they were more tuned into politics, they would have hit this closer, I think.
Isn't it kind of nuts that they like put in jabs such as like, we don't care about bipartisanship, we're just going to push through this bill, which is like a Republican lie about what's going on with the Build Back Better bill. Too many B's. Like that, I heard that, I was like, Jesus Christ, this feels like I'm watching like conservative SNL.
I mean, that's really what it is.
Yeah,
really
just
is.
Elon Musk's week.
But like the evil, experts are like, listen, once we determine what every child needs to know, it is imperative that they know it, which I think is such a sinister and evil line. I loved that. And then, all the co-op people are fighting back, and they're just like, hey, did you know that homeschoolers score better on standardized tests than all public school kids, which is just not true.
Well, and okay, even if it is, can we just talk about the racist elephant in the room about how standardized tests promote a particular way of thinking?
Let me at him.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to say, SAT scores are just racist, and a lot of standardized testing, you can map it directly to how much money people make, and that is because rich people can, because these tests are a language, and if you have money, you can have someone teach your kid how to speak this language, and if you don't have money, you have to figure it out on your own, which is much harder. Standardized tests do not show how well you've retained the information. All they have shown is if you can speak the test language.
And I guess that makes sense, right? I'm going to retract my statement because I actually don't know whether or not homeschoolers get better standardized test scores. But I think it makes sense that, like, if you are a person who has enough disposable income to homeschool your kids, you can probably afford to help them take standardized tests with, expensive tutors.
Well, and, like, if your entire, like, system of being able to continue homeschooling your kid is contingent on them passing a test, that's what you're going to teach them.
And, like, in order to be able to homeschool, there also has to be, like, at least someone in the house there most of the time. And if you look at one of, like, the number one reasons that we have public schooling is it's free childcare for a lot of people that have, like, very busy lives and hard jobs to do. And mixing on top of that, like, after coming home after 8 hours of work and having to help your kid with math homework, that sounds terrible. I help the kids with math homework during my day. I don't want to do that when I get home.
I'm not helping anyone with math homework.
We know.
It's at this point that Pastor Dave is like, what about Thanksgiving?
Oh my god, I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose it.
Everybody in the Congress in the hearing room was just like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he's like, well, actually, the first Thanksgiving was not a multicultural event. It was about Christians thanking God, and I guess the Native Americans were there. It's like, all right.
Like, the only note I have is, what the fuck are you talking about, Dave?
I'm so sorry because I haven't been funny once during this podcast because all I'm doing is correcting this dude's bad history, which is not entertaining. The fucking first Thanksgiving, first of all, might have been in Virginia. Do your math. Also, the one you're talking about was because a ton of stuck-up Christians were like, wait, we can't persecute people? Fuck, I guess we'll leave. And then Native Americans were like, hey, maybe we don't let these guys just fucking die. They're bad at this. They're really bad at living. And then they helped them out, and then they ate. Yeah, the Pilgrims were very, 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 very religious. But again, not your type of religious.
Yeah, it's very strange that they bring this up, and it goes nowhere. It's just very stupid. But also, it's at this point that Taylor, they're like all like, oh, you're Miss whatever your last name is, and they're like, belittling her, and they're like, oh, you're unemployed, you used to be a waitress, huh? And then the congressmen are all making fun of her, and then she's like, actually, I used to work for NASA. She was literally a rocket scientist this whole time, and she talks about how Buzz Aldrin took communion on the moon, and she's like, my 7-year-old knows that the Earth is around, and my husband died so I could homeschool my 7-year-old. So I would actually prefer if you called me Mrs. Hayes. Thank you very much.
How is this an applause line? How, like...
People are cheering, like literally cheering and screaming.
Losing their minds.
In the stands. Like, it's ridiculous.
As someone who has watched a lot of C-SPAN, you don't generally get a lot of cheering.
The exact response would have been, okay.
All right.
Right, and let's also address, even the worst Democrat that we have would not be like, oh, you're unemployed. Even the worst Democrat would be like, yeah, you should probably get a check from the government for that.
It's
not too big, though.
Yeah, exactly. The worst one would be like, it should be a check that's super small, but you still get one. Republicans would be like, how dare you be unemployed? You must be a
Yes.
like deadbeat drug user or something.
Yes, it's very funny that, you know, it's very telling what they make the Democrats say.
I am occasionally a lurker on Reddit, and there's some I don't know if this is their actual name, but I call them the "and then everyone clapped" posts. And this was definitely one of them, where someone makes up a fake story where they sound so fucking cool and awesome, and they showed someone up, and it just feels like they should all end with "and then everyone clapped." That's this entire movie. It's just someone saying the dumbest shit you've ever heard to a made-up circumstance, and then in the movie, everyone loses their mind.
Right, like all these films are just like chick tracts for 90 minutes, like, you know, wild shit. So, real quick, we cut back to Aisha, who is now in the hospital. Her estranged father shows up, and the doctor's like, yeah, I mean, I guess she just got head trauma. Otherwise, you know, there's nothing wrong with her besides the massive brain damage she sustained. That's why she's in a coma, but don't worry about it. Anyway, are you religious? You should pray about this.
To which the dad's like, huh? Pray?
Yeah, the thing is that, well, I'm gonna wait until the final bit, but it's bad. Cut to Janine Perot and her daughter arguing, because her daughter figures out that her mom is gonna send her boyfriend's parents to jail, and then they have this big argument, presented in the way that like a court argument is presented, because this mom makes her daughter talk to her like a lawyer does, which is a weird kink, but it's fine. It's whatever.
It's what liberals do.
It's what liberals do, naturally. And we get the line, you know, they're arguing about whether or not homeschooling should be allowed at all, I guess. And the judge says, homeschooling is separatist, elitist, and racist, Kayla. Which is so good.
It's such a good, powerful line.
You know, I did say Janine was sober. In this scene, she was not sober.
No. I am so surprised none of the bad liberals had blue hair.
Honestly, it couldn't have been any more on brand.
Oh, I can't. The next one's going to be just about TikToks. I fucking calling it.
No, they don't know what TikTok is.
No.
Cut back to the hearing. We get somebody being like, you know, questioning Pastor Dave about the, you know, using a Bible in his studies. And he's like, surely how you recognize how sexist and patriarchal the Bible is. And he's like, is that a legitimate question?
Or are you just trying to get a sound bite?
Yeah. And then, you know, everybody erupts in laughter because they're like, oh, wow, really got that stinky lib. And then he says the most wild thing I've ever heard, which is the Bible is one of the most pro-feminist documents in history. Josh, can you tell me about the Roman laws about women covering their hair?
I genuinely don't know a ton about, like, Roman law and when it comes with covering your hair. I will say that, like, a lot of people were like, whoa, this, like, Middle Eastern town in, like, the Middle Ages or ancient times had, like, women, wore head coverings. Like, that was just a thing with all religions in the Middle East for a long time. Like, head coverings were just very common. I also want to point out that he was like, well, yeah, Paul said that because he was a feminist, because during Roman times you had to show your hair because you had to be all scandalous. It's like, yeah, what about the Old Testament where, like, it does tell you to sell women? How about that, Paul?
Real quick, I am looking at the Wikipedia for Roman hairs with like hairstyle and laws, and it says that we know that veils were important in this case as they protected against or encouraged solicitations by men. So just a straight up lie. My God's not dead, but sure.
I wish we, like, if this was a different program, we'd have a lie count, but that would be infinite.
Yeah, we would, you know, we're trying to hit around an hour here, and we don't have that much time. Okay, so eventually they're like, okay, we're gonna come to a decision here in a little bit, and then Dave is like, hey, are you gonna rule about our thing in the co-op? And they're like, I'm sorry, you don't know what you're here for, do you?
In what way does the U.S. government work like that?
Yeah. Take a civics class, my dude.
This is judicial. You're in legislative.
Yeah, it's completely wild, and everyone's like, ah, shit, maybe we should have thought about the law more instead of coming out here and trying to, not defending ourselves in our own jurisdiction, but whatever. We get this, the guy who's heading up the hearing, he comes in and does an evil monologue at Dave, and he's like, we do these, like, hearing things because we're supposed to, because supposedly somebody's watching, but, no one's paying attention. We've already decided, Are you sure this is the hill you want to die on? And Dave is like, our whole faith is based on one man choosing to die on a hill. And he's like, well, dude, maybe slow it with the religious rhetoric. This is not hell. This is Washington. And Dave says, close enough. Fucking got him.
Got him.
I'm not going to go on this rant. It's just so racist, though. It's so racist and classist when people say shit like this. Go fuck yourself. And you know what? That's your capital. Don't like it? You can move. That's free. It's not, but I'm going to lie to you because you lied to your audiences. It's free to move. Leave the country, please.
Here we get the scene with Aisha's dad. He goes to St. Jude's Church in Arkansas, and he has this angry conversation with the cross, right? And he's like, why are you doing this to me, son of God, quote unquote, like, did Aisha displease you? She was a worshiper of yours, or are you punishing me? And he's just like, I beg of you, if you must have blood, take mine instead, which, like, I think is kind of a raw line, like, kind of like, okay, like, if they are trying to portray this man as somebody who knows nothing about, Abrahamic religion, it is very funny to be like, I see that the Christian God is a bloodthirsty God, please, I offer you myself, which I think is a very interesting take. But, like, we didn't talk about this in our Midnight Mass episode, but, like, we got in Midnight Mass, like, a man explaining, like, no, Muslims know about the Bible and we know who Jesus is. Like, this is the direct opposite of being, like, a man who's just like, I don't know who Yeshua, I've never heard of him. Like, it's very stupid. And then maybe the stupidest thing that happens in this film happens here, which is that Jackson shows up in the church. The little boy from the co-op.
So fucking weird. So weird.
He shows up here and is like, it's okay. And they have a conversation about how Jackson's like, I wish I could go to heaven so that way my mom and my dad could be back together again. And, like, Aisha's dad's like, hey, kid, no, don't say things like that. What the hell? And, like, I hate to admit that kind of got me. Like, I think there was, like, a level of sincerity in this actor's voice when he's like, oh my God, kid, please, like, don't, it's so sad that you're thinking about this. And, like, a parent's duty is to, do what is best for their child. And, like, the ideology under that is absolutely trash. So I feel bad that this got me, but I was like, this is kind of working for me.
That dude's reaction
sucks.
Was just ours to the entire, like, Jesus Camp documentary, where some little kid would say the most wild shit you've ever seen with a smile, and we all went, oh my God, because, like, I mean, parody doesn't even describe how weird this scene is.
It's embarrassing. But the main thing he says is, like, every father will choose his child's needs over his own, which, like, it's after this, it's, like, heavily implied that he converts to Christianity. And, I don't want to go back to this, but spoiler alert, that's what brings Aisha out of her coma. So,
Hey, remember,
this is
remember when they were like, hey, God doesn't punish people or kill people if they don't obey. He just holds their daughter in a coma.
Just wild. Like, there must be somebody here who understands these narrative parallels and is just like, keep it in. Nope, that makes sense. Does somebody want to talk about the very wild scene where they talk about this statue of Lady Freedom, I think, in this thing, and then a bunch of randos come up and talk to them? Please, somebody break that down for me, because it is insane.
Michael, I've ranted so much already. I'm going to pass this one on to you.
I was laughing through most of this scene. I actually was, like, crying a little bit. I was laughing so hard. It's why I made my I am we the people joke. It's just, So we're gonna go on a ride for this.
Just do your best.
So yeah, I can't believe this is what's next out of my mouth. HBO show Game of Thrones had a thread where they did sexposition, where there would be a bunch of sex going on, and they would just like drop exposition.
My God, I wish
dumps.
this movie did.
This was like the Christian equivalent of that, though, because it was like monument exposition where they're like standing talking about George Washington praying and saying that like I homeschool my kids because of gun violence, and I do because my schools are underfunded. Notice no one said because they were an anti-vaxxer, but we know one of them was.
They said, oh, I want to do homeschool my kids because of medical freedom. And to choose which vaccines that they get. There's an anti-vaxxer in this fucking thing, and they're just like, yeah, no, I want to homeschool my kids so they can get diseases that are fun and new, or old rather. But yeah, like it's not even like you can't parody this.
That's the thing. I was laughing too hard at some of the other things, so I missed that entirely.
If this movie had any fucking balls, one of them would have walked up and went, I'm gonna homeschool my kids because I'm tired of these globe cucks running around here saying that the world is round. If it's so round, why aren't we falling off of it? It says in the Bible that the sun circles around the earth. Am I right? Can I get an amen, fellow homeschooled kids?
Listen, all those parents are literally rocket scientists. So.
Yeah, they're all like, neuroscientists, rocket scientists. They're all just scientists. Everyone here is a scientist. That are also
That's
anti-vaxxers.
why they killed that woman's husband, because she knows the earth is flat, and that way it keeps her fucking mouth quiet. That way she doesn't spill the beans. This all makes sense.
Well, and then they like drop like the reason I just describe this like sex position is because then they drop like, well, did you know 70% of parents who homeschool their kids are not religious? And it's like, that doesn't really fit into this plot at all.
I also don't believe that at all. I could be shown. This is my toxic trait, where I could be shown that statistic and I'd still go, I don't know.
Well, because guess what? People can lie. That costs no money at all. You can just lie.
Also, like, just statistically, this is still a predominantly, like, Christian nation.
Right, like, are you meaning to tell me that the, like, percentage of homeschool parents is direct inverse to the, like, general public in terms of their Christian affiliation?
Yeah, that's wild. Like, it to me feels very similar if they were like, do you know most people that homeschool their kids are actually communists?
So this is from admissionsly.com, so I don't know how accurate this is, but apparently they say that 36% of parents homeschool their kids to instill the right religious beliefs in them.
That's the stat. That's so different.
That's very
That's
different.
listed reason for, like, homeschooling, not...
You can say your reason is anything.
Yeah!
Because I want my kid to spend quality time with my pets. Like, that can...
The fucking medical freedom, I guarantee, leads back to Christianity.
It depends what state you're from.
Yeah, and it depends. I need to see some other demographic details about you before I can land on that, because there are the Jenny McCarthys of the world.
Yeah, I was going to say, California is probably a bigger, medical freedom state than Arkansas, I think. But
yeah.
Anyway, we get this really, really stupid montage of all these people giving the reasons why they homeschool their kids, and they all start saying the preamble to the Constitution together. And, like, I think your sexposition metaphor is right, Michael, because it's literally the most, like, propagandistic jerk-off moment I've ever seen in any piece of media. And then they all...
It felt lewd.
Yeah, it's really gross. And then, like, somebody says, I am we the people, like, unironically straight-faced, and, I could hear everybody's howling from across state lines. Just fucking wild.
It was incredibly straight-faced.
It was the worst. So, at the very end, the Congressman Smith, yields his time to Pastor Dave and is like, I have a final statement I want to make. And Dave has this speech about, monuments and how important monuments are and why we shouldn't tear them down. And he's like, we can't let the sacrifice of our heroic white soldiers be in vain. And he says this thing, which drives me up a fucking wall. But he's like, I have 3 friends who have a pretty good understanding of what's at stake here today. They're from faraway places like China, cuts to Martin. Iran, cuts to Aisha. We never knew that. I assumed Aisha was American until this very moment. And Africa, even though we had a fucking cutscene previous with Jude telling him that he's from Nigeria, but he says Africa, so cool.
The nation of Africa.
The nation of Africa. Yep. It's fucking stupid. But he's like, to understand how precious freedom is, you have to lose it. You know, the only way that you can get more power is by taking it from someone else. But that pesky constitution is getting in the way. And then, they're like, order, come to order, bailiff, stop this man. He's like, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the people who elected you. You know, those statues and monuments, they say you work for us. You know, what you call teaching is really social engineering. But you know what? We, the people, are not going to stand for it. Everybody's cheering, they're screaming, everybody is just
foaming at the mouth.
Weaving American flags out of their undergarments. It's just the most. And then it goes hard cuts to this montage of the monuments, and it might as well have been a scene out of Schoolhouse Rock with how many fucking stupid American things they just showed on screen.
I'm only a bill.
I was waiting for a mob of people to storm the Capitol and sit in the speaker's chair.
There's a guy with a buffalo hat. It was insane.
And then, it cuts, and then we hear our favorite song, the Newsboys' God's Not Dead, playing. And I cheered. I was so happy. This is how the movie ended. Spoiler alert, they also, while the credits are playing, the mom talks to her daughter, and she tears up the court order, so that way the parents don't go to jail, which is very funny because they're like, oh shit, we forgot to resolve the whole thing. Let's put in a subplot that makes no sense and is very boring. And that's, I don't know why they included that entire thing, but they did have to resolve that. But it ends with the I watched through the whole credits, and it ends with hashtag God's Not Dead, and then a bunch of court cases that allegedly were homeschooling people being persecuted against it, which is wild.
I did not watch the post-credit scene. I tuned out the moment I heard the Newsboys start playing. I went, none of that faith-healing witchcraft in this Wiccan household. I don't want my children being indoctrinated by that. My 2 cats.
Too bad for you, Michael. Prayer needs to be back in school, and it's mandatory now.
Oh, God. But yeah, that's God's Not Dead, We the People. I was so happy to watch that movie. It was everything I wanted out of a God's Not Dead movie.
You know, it did teach me an important lesson.
What's that?
I could make a satire of Christianity, sell it as a Christian movie, and just break box office records.
So I see you broke into my folder that said "Become Christian Comedian," huh?
No, mine's a director. I'm shooting for the stars.
Here's the thing, Michael. I think you're above that. I think that you would actually have some self-respect and good ideas about filmmaking, and I think that you would accidentally make a good movie, and then it wouldn't do well. But here's some weird stuff about this film's production and release is that it was only in theaters for 3 days, October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. It was one of those special Fathom events. And then it is on PureFlix from October 22nd to November 21st, and that's it. I don't know if they sold the rights to another streaming service or what, but I don't know what this movie who is paying for this movie or how they're trying to sell it, but it's so weird.
Do you guys mind if I just read a quick sentence of a review for this movie?
Please.
God's Not Dead, We the People is not merely the worst in an already misbegotten series, but so utterly deplorable that its status as a 3-night-only event in theaters at least assures that significantly fewer people will see it.
Thank you. I also, for the record, think this is maybe the second worst God's Not Dead movie. I think that... where would you all rank this in the God's Not Dead canon?
Ooh, I gotta give my full ranking. Give me 1 second.
I'll give mine. I think that it's first. The first one's the best because they had, of course, Kevin Sorbo. And not only did they have Kevin Sorbo, they had Kevin Sorbo get hit by a car, which was great. I think the second was pretty good just because I liked the legal bullshit. And also they had that great cover of what's that song? They had a great cover of a song that I listen to sometimes when I feel like crying. Which
Any Catholic song?
No, it's not a Catholic song because this isn't really a Catholic franchise. Let me go to my YouTube.
I'm gonna laugh when Aaron pulls out his phone and it's just the Newsboys' God's Not Dead.
But like the instrumental.
It's
yeah, like an acoustic
it's How
version.
Great Thou Art, and it is on a secret playlist that I have saved on YouTube.
Just gonna hack
I
your
like that
account
cover
real
a lot.
quick.
And I think the fourth one is right here. I think it's pretty good and has a bunch of really stupid bullshit. You know, it continues to work with the characters we have expanded, you know, from the extended universe. And I think the third, and also it's 90 minutes. It's the shortest God's Not Dead film, so
Yes.
you're all welcome for that. I think the third is the worst. I think it's a slog and it's racist and very stupid.
I don't disagree with that, like, where you put all of those. I think number one is, like, the first movie is definitely my favorite, solely because it has the newsboys impregnating a woman. Is that what happens, or it
Wait,
saves her
what?
life? What did she get prayer healed or prayer pregnant? Which one?
No, definitely prayer healed. I don't think anybody gets pregnant through
I'm
prayer.
thinking of something in
yeah.
my own life. Sorry. I used to know a person I went to church with that claimed that she got pregnant through a prayer cloth.
Yes, you've told me that before.
Yeah,
Awful.
yeah. Okay, my bad. Yeah, it's got the Newsboys prayer healing, and I mean, that's amazing. The second one's pretty good because the romance is so phoned in. It's beautiful. Yeah, this one, I don't know. This one made me so upset. I'm tying it with last. This one caused me actual damage, and it's probably because of the time we're watching it.
That's fair.
Love that all of our rankings are different. This makes my soul very happy. So number 2 is unequivocally the best film because
It has
of the
what's her name in it?
well, no, because it has the sexy gardener from Desperate Housewives.
What's his name in it?
I don't know his name, but I just know him as the sexy gardener. He's John in my head. He had sex with Gabrielle Solis, played by none other than Eva Longoria.
1 second, I'm pulling
And
it up.
I mean,
I'm pulling it up. It
yes,
just says sexy gardener. Yeah, Michael's right.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
And it does have the original Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, so I do appreciate that. So yeah, the second film just holds a soft spot for me. Number 2 would be the first film. I just think it's like, maybe I'm judging too hard filmmaking wise, but it's just like a very clunky, awkward, low budget film. So that kind of dings it a few points for me. This is the third ranking, this particular film, because of the same reasons. The first one was bumped down, this one was bumped up. I think perhaps the cleanest filmmaking we've seen in any of these. And I like inside jokes and callbacks, so like that works for me.
This movie also had the worst CGI I've ever seen, and I just got done watching Thor Ragnarok. Like, this movie where he is just looking at the Washington Monument, and it's clearly like a pencil drawing of the Washington Monument. I'm like, y'all are in DC. Just take a picture. I don't know.
Yeah, like I can literally see it from my apartment.
I could
like it's really just not that hard.
Google an image and stick it there. Like, people have got that shot's not like a new shot.
Yeah.
Like, we've done that one before.
Well, and the last one is the third one for all the reasons that Aaron mentioned, but also it just like it seems somehow to be the one with like the most toxicity without even like one iota of levity.
Yeah, there's no jokes. It's just Pastor Dave running in the rain and being sad.
You guys know who I miss? Car Guy. I miss Car Guy. He kept bringing the broken cars. I miss him so much. What do you think he's up to?
I can't believe there was a film about education and they didn't bring back Melissa Joan
Oh
Hart
my
at
god,
all.
yeah.
I expected to see
like-
her. I expected to see that reporter. Disappointed.
I really wanted to see the sexy gardener. I know that was a tough ask, but like he's a lawyer.
He could have been a lawyer, yeah. That's a shame. That's a shame.
I want to ask probably the most depressing question I've ever asked on Bible Boys.
Oh no.
Over under on God's Not Dead 5, including Chris Pratt.
Oh, almost 100%.
Yeah.
I would be so happy if God's Not Dead if I had Chris Pratt. Are you kidding me?
Hey guys, I'm here to announce that I'm doing this amazing movie. You've known me as Mario. You've known me as Garfield. Now get ready for Pastor Dave's wacky younger brother.
We get another brother.
Yes, another brother. Oh my lord.
Much in the same way that I'm upset that Timothée Chalamet is stealing all of the roles in Hollywood for Michael, I'm upset that Chris Pratt's stealing all of mine.
Well, that's so funny you say that, because if my theory about the plot of God's Not Dead 5 is correct, and it is about the lawsuit that Aaron is about to be served with, then Chris Pratt is playing you.
Oh, that's rough for my whole brand.
Cannot wait. Can't wait for God's Not Dead 5. I think actually God's Not Dead 5 will be about critical race theory, which is unfortunate, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
You don't think it'll be about schmabortion?
Oh, it'll definitely. I think.
Well, oh yeah, because it'll be illegal again. So.
It'll be the post-Roe world by then, so.
Oh, this is the most depressing Bible Boys episode we've ever done, and you guys did one about smabortion.
All right. Well, shall we rate this quality film?
Yeah, I got my rating. I've had it since probably about 10 minutes into the film.
Good.
I'm gonna give this one. The Founding Fathers should actually be called the Founding Just Kinda Kicking It Kids.
I'm going to give this the 11th station, Jesus is Nailed to the Cross, because it was painful in a lot of ways, but honestly, I had a great time.
Wait.
What?
I want more elaboration. Jesus had a good time being nailed?
I mean, I have a great time because I don't get my sins are redeemed by Jesus Christ. So like, I'm thrilled that I'm not thrilled, but I am like glad that he did it.
So Aaron was cheering on Pontius Pilate.
Aaron.
Okay, if we were to get into our theological conversations, Judas got fucking the short stick because like somebody had to portray Jesus. It was in all the prophecies. So like, we should be thrilled about Judas, actually.
So you've heard my impassioned defense of Mary Magdalene. Aaron feels the same way about Judas.
I'm a Judas stan, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Which controversial Bible figure am I going to respect from Jesus' life? Oh my god.
Stay tuned to find out.
The demons in Legion were just vibing.
Honestly, it's animal cruelty. Michael, please.
So I am going to give this one wine-drunken jaunt through the woods of Chappaqua looking for a failed presidential candidate, because my girl Janine did not get enough screen time.
What a shame.
Truly the only good thing that happened in 2016.
Well, Josh, do you want to enlighten us on what we are watching next week?
We are going to be watching a good flick from a good man. No, we're breaking our rule. We made a rule a long time ago. No, Mel Gibson. But I want to watch Hacksaw Ridge because it looks fucking wild. We're going to be watching Hacksaw Ridge. What if a soldier didn't fight because of God?
Listen, we are only ever going to watch 2 Mel Gibson films on this podcast. One is The Passion, and one is
Daddy's Home 2.
Hacksaw Ridge. No. So we are sorry about that, but listen, there's not that many big name Christian movies. I promise you all, we're probably not going to pay for it. So,
and if we only watch movies, like Christian movies from non-anti-Semitic racist people, we'd be done. We're done.
Yeah, I mean, we can't do God's Not Dead.
We would have never started this
podcast wouldn't exist if we just didn't do racist stuff.
Well, don't worry, audience, because I have a little treat for you after this, so you'll have to stay tuned for my pick.
Yes, Michael, as always, is going to be bringing us back with a quality film. But if the descriptions of our upcoming episodes, past episodes, and current episodes just really made you want to weep in sadness and frustration, just remember that it is okay to cry, because even Jesus wept. We'll see you all next week.